High school reading classes typically have you read one like hyper introspective look at society book, and that's how you create pseudo intellectuals. Whether it's The Lord of the Flies, 1987, or Animal Farm, your teachers usually want you to read this and then write like a 40-page essay on it. I had to read, actually, I didn't even read, I watched The Crucible, and I just like filled out basically a fill in the gaps paperwork on it. And at the end of the year, she was like, "Yeah, I just want you guys to create something interesting for your final." And so that's what this video is. This is my actual junior year final that I turned in. This is probably where I peaked in high school. I'm not even gonna lie. The Crucible is a movie that was released in 1996. It's an adaptation of a book released in 1953 by the same name. It talks about the Salem witch trials and how you could be accused for being a witch for pretty much anything. Coughing too loud? Witch! Accurately predicting something obvious? Witch. Women who can read? God help you. The movie and book's main commentary is that we never really learned anything from the witch hunt. And we've been shown this time and time again. But you already knew that, didn't you? The movie opens up with no, I'm kidding. Could you imagine though? The movie opens up with a group of women dancing in the woods. Then one of the girls begins tweaking and tries to inflict poison damage on herself by drinking kids' blood. She tries to hurt herself a lot, so I'm just gonna leave this here. They get interrupted by the worst character in the movie, Reverend Harris. Seriously, this guy sucks so bad. He would be number one if it wasn't for one other person, but, you know, spoilers. The little girl decides it's too quiet, so to fix this issue, she starts screaming. It's very safe to do in the woods, I assure you. Paris sees the monstrosity they're cooking up, and the screen cuts to black. The next day, and scene, everyone is trying to act like they weren't on freak timing, and trying not to talk about the previous night. Then they see that Paris's daughter, the one who was screaming, isn't waking up. Then when they call her name a few times, Paris instantly realizes that there must be... So they stop their bickering and call the town nurse, who instantly sees through the ruse. Everyone just throws her opinion away like garbage, probably because, you know, woman, I guess. But they decide to try to brush it off and just go to Sunday school. Girls all stay behind and try to wake the child up, though.
Wake up.
And they succeed.
You're finally awake.
Then they don't. When the girl wakes up, she says that she misses her mom, and that's the only thing that will truly wake her up out of this slumber, is how I interpret it anyway. To which Abby is pretty much just like, yeah, she dead. She probably in hell too. Well, shoot, she got out of the casket. This makes the girl have an existential crisis, or something. I don't know, do you have a better idea? And she starts screaming. Again, the churchgoers all hear this and are like, witch! But anyway, they decide to call in the first outsider, Reverend Hale, aka the Goat. But before we meet him, we get a quick intermission where Abby tries to use her light-skin riz on John Proctor, the main character, but she forgot a crucial detail. Light skins don't exist yet. John, can I call you John, calls her dumb and a poopy head, pretty much, but this does nothing to make Abby change her mind. Pretty much, the next scene is gaslighting. Severe gaslighting. Reverend Hale is threatening to beat them if they don't confess, so they pretty much just blame Tituba, a slave who was helping them conjure the spells. We have to sit through a 1-minute torture scene where he gets Tituba to confess, so she blames some rando, I forgot her name. And after seeing that it works, all the other girls also start blaming said rando. And Tituba's just like, Reverend Hale decides that this is bigger than him, and so he calls in a man by the name of Thomas Danforth, and he is basically the Salem equivalent to Judge Judy. He's the worst character in the movie, but again, spoilers. Anyway, Danforth pulls up to the village with his bros. He calls an emergency meeting and tries to get to the bottom of this. He questions the girls, and they all, in unison, start tweaking. The girls start doing complete theatrics. I mean, they're falling, pretending to faint, screaming, basically theater kids, but, you know, less dramatic. Danforth sees this and decides that the girls are in fact guilty of witchcraft. And so he decides that he'll stay until he banishes the devil from Salem. Someone has a god complex. Now I'm gonna skip a little bit, but all you really need to know is that women keep accusing people of being witches. People are taking advantage of the craziness and accuse other people of committing witchcraft. They do this for a few reasons. Land, money, ego. But the two reasons we see are ego and land. Anyway, moving forward some, Reverend Hale shows up to Mrs. or Goody Proctor's house to interrogate her. This is where we start to see a major turning point in the character of Reverend Hale. He was once a good Christian man, by 15th century standards anyway, and he whipped a woman over an accusation. But he had gotten to know Salem, and he knows that these are good people. So while Goody Proctor is taken away, he vows to stop all of this before it gets even worse. While John and Hale are talking, Mary shows up out of nowhere. I guess her spawn queue must have been met, and John immediately runs up to her and threatens her, which is just the greatest way to get someone on your side. But Mary must have gained some confidence, because she instantly comes up with an argument for why he, in fact, shouldn't hurt her. And the next day we cut to a man named Giles Corey being stoned to death. But instead of having chunks of rock hurled at his head full force and then attempt to force a lobotomy, it's more like this. Hale's plan to save Mrs. Proctor is to basically just have an epic debate on live. But every time he tries, Danforth shoots it down. John comes into the room holding a paper and says the classic, "I believe this is all the evidence you need right here." And Danforth is like, "Man, it's so lame, man." Then John goes, "You've activated my trap card. With this treasure, I summon," and pulls up a lawyer who's actually very well versed in the court of law, and is basically 15th century Jayoma. Danforth tries to despawn him, but he's a pretty good lawyer, so he's able to come up with a counter-argument for pretty much everything. So Danforth just banishes him. Like, we never see this guy again. It's pretty funny, actually. Anyway, John and Danforth continue arguing, and they call the girls from the town. So John calls in Plan C, Mary. Now, Mary is actually about to come through in like 20 years. Now, the argument actually does start fairly strong. Mary has some points against them, talks about how they were basically just faking everything. The witchcraft wasn't real, all that. But Abby just pretty much hits them with the no. Abby starts accusing Mary again, claiming that she's becoming like a firebird or something, and conveniently it's invisible so nobody else can see it. She and all the other girls run out into the town, literally full sprinting into a nearby lake, presumably to go drown themselves. All the other townspeople are like, they might be witches, and they might be liars, but we should save them. So they all sprint after them too. For some reason, John is one of these people. I don't know why he didn't just stay there, but John grabs a hold of Mary and demands that she tells the truth. And she hits him with the
Oh, what the hell?
and turns on John, running over to with the other girls and says that he tried to get her to lie about Mrs. Proctor. Danforth asks if this is true, and John does perhaps just the dumbest thing he could have. You know what? God ain't even real for real for real. That night, Abby robs her uncle, I don't know if I ever mentioned that, and tries to come and free John, pleading with him to just come with her to a slave trade ship leaving for Barbossa, or at least talk to her. But, alas, he's mean. Reverend Hill makes one last attempt to try to stop all of this. He frees Goody Proctor and tries to get her to reason with John. She says that she will, but only if she gets to talk to him by herself. And so they let them off some, 40 feet away from everybody else and just watch them talk. While they're talking, Goody Proctor asks John if he's decided what he wants to do yet. He comes down from the hill, and it's revealed that, he's gonna lie and said he's done witchcraft. He signs his name, which Danforth is very serious about. When Danforth asks him to give the paper, John holds the paper and pleads to not give it to him, to spare at least some of his reputation. However, Danforth says that if John doesn't give up the paper, he will be assumed a liar and his word will be thrown out. John accepts this, ripping up the paper and crying, which okay, I get it. On a smaller level, you want to keep your reputation. You don't want your family to be besmirched as witches, plausible deniability. But you could have saved 17 people. The next scene is a somber one. On the day of the execution, all the townsfolk are saying that they still think John Proctor is a good person and he has a spot in heaven. This is a complete juxtaposition to an earlier scene. I didn't bring it up to save time, but it's basically just 3 people were getting hanged and the townspeople were cheering. The 3 people who were being hanged start saying that "My Father who art in heaven" prayer. But the executioners don't even let them finish the prayer, kicking them off, which is kind of based, honestly. The movie ends on a shot of the noose, swaying side to side. All in all, I thought The Crucible was pretty good. I mean, it's better than some other movies we could have had to watch. And if I had to assign some sort of theme, I would say something like, some people can't see the gray of light and only see black and white. So you can't try to be both good and bad. You have to be one or the other. And I think this because, only people who are strictly good or strictly bad make it out of this pretty much alive. That's just a theory. A game! No, I'm kidding.